Hey everybody, welcome back to another edition of Homemade. So, as you can see, y'all see my fall colors. I'm wearing my apron and my orange apron and my black shirt. That's shout out to my sister, LA Creations. Today we are going to be making a very simple and common cake. And it is a coconut cake. I had a client to reach out to me and her boss's favorite cake is coconut, and she asked me to make this cake. Now the thing about this cake, it is going to be traveling a few hundred miles, so I wanted to go ahead and show you all that it doesn't matter if your cake is traveling around the corner, down the street, or a few hundred miles. It can be simple, but it can also be good. Of course, you all know this is a layered cake, so you know my recipe for my cakes. It is the basic 1, 2, 3, 4 cake, and I just add my twist to it, meaning sometimes I put different flavors in it, and sometimes you do have to add a few extra ingredients, but for the base of it, keep it simple. Be yourself. You don't have to bake like the next person. This cake, I promise you, it is a homemade cake. It smells good, tastes good, the texture is good on it, and if you make it, I promise you, you will not be disappointed. And just to go over what our basic ingredients are for our 1, 2, 3, 4 cake, it is 1 cup of milk, 2 cups of sugar, 3 cups of flour, 4 eggs, and to go back to the two sticks of butter. We are going to modify it a little bit. For our milk, we are going to use 1 1/4 cup of milk because we are going to be putting pudding into this cake. So this is going to be just a basic vanilla cake with pudding. We're also going to use, and you all know in all of my cakes, I use vegetable shortening. So we're going to use our 1/2 cup of vegetable shortening. That's something that we're going to add to it. And also, we're still going to use our tablespoon of vanilla, but we are also going to add in a teaspoon of cake batter flavor, and that just gives it that extra flavor and even the smell, you all. I promise you, the smell of the cake when you use that cake batter flavor, it is out of this world. I typically use my stand mixer that's behind me, but I want to show you all that if you do not have a stand mixer, don't be intimidated. Don't feel like, you can't. No, we are going to bake this cake. I'm going to show you how easy and how simple it is. We are going to mix this cake with just our regular hand mixer, guys. We're going to do everything by hand because, again, I want to show you that cooking is as simple or as hard as you make it. I promise you, you will not be disappointed. So let's go ahead and get started. Of course, the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to cream our Imperial. And I know I said butter, but you all know for my cakes, I always use Imperial. I rarely use butter. Now, for our shortening, I've been baking for a while, so I can kind of eye something and tell, when I'm measuring it. I don't have to necessarily measure it all the time. And the reason that I'm not going to measure this out is because I want to show you all how foolproof this recipe is, that even if you make a mistake on something, it's not the end of the world. Don't throw your batter out. If you don't put enough of something, don't think that it's not going to turn out right, or if you put a little too much of something. You all, cooking is a science. So let's go ahead. We're going to put in our shortening. And again, if you are measuring this, you want to use a 1/2 cup. Now, this is about how much I would typically put in there. So I'm just going to take that off with my hand. And my hands are clean, guys. Now we are going to start creaming this. Now, since we're doing this by hand, if it was on my stand mixer, I would just let it sit there for 10 minutes. Maybe even longer sometimes, but I'm just going to go ahead and start creaming this, and I just want to cream this until my shortening and my Imperial is incorporated. And I'll be honest with you, sometimes I like doing it by hand a little more because you can move your mixer around enough to where you don't necessarily have to keep scraping. Your mixer can do it for you. So while my mixer is going, I'm going to cut it down a little bit. And I'm going to start adding my sugar in. So I'm going to cut my mixer back up. And since I'm doing it by hand, again, I want to show y'all how easy it is. I'm going to cream this for about 5 to 10 minutes, not the 10 to 15. I'm just going to cream it well enough. Now, you do want it to be creamy now. You don't want to just mix it for 2 seconds and then, start doing it. No. We're going to mix it. We do want it to be creamy. All right, so we've been creaming that for a few minutes. I'm going to cut my mixer off. Now, this step, I'm going to add my eggs in one at a time. And I'm just going to mix it until my egg kind of disappears. Now, if you notice, I have not added my flavorings yet. Remember, I like to add my flavorings kind of towards the end. For this, we are going to use our 2.5 to half flour mixture. So we're using 2.5 cups of self-rising and a half cup of all-purpose. But we're still going to use our half teaspoon of baking soda, half teaspoon of salt, and half teaspoon of baking powder, because we are using an all-purpose flour. So we still need to put those rising agents in there. All right, that's mixed well enough. Now I'm going to put in my flavorings. Oh, and again, I put a little too much in there. Absolutely fine. And we're going to put in our cake batter. If you want to put in a little more cake batter flavor, please be my guest. Mix that in. Okay. Now, before I put my flour in, I am going to go ahead and scrape down this and mix it for about 30 seconds, guys. Just to say we did scrape the bowl. For those people that are having anxiety attacks, so it's not scraping the bowl. All right. We're going to go ahead and start rotating our flour and milk. And we're going to do this in 2 sets. Meaning we're going to put in half now and half for the second rip. Because again, quick recipe. Now, if you all notice, I have my mixer still on low speed because I don't want that flour and milk to splatter everywhere. So, but I'm still hitting the top of my bowl. Cut it up. Mix that in. Second batch. Tap it. And second batch. Even if you mess up, even if it does not turn out the way that it should be, don't stop trying. You all, I don't care how seasoned you are, how long you've been baking, cooking, there are still going to be times that you are going to have your thing not turn out the way that you intended. So again, don't beat yourself up. All right. See how easy that was? Now we'll put in our pudding. And for our pudding, again, I'm not going to measure it, but at this stage, you do want to put in 3 to 4 teaspoons of pudding. And I'm just using a basic vanilla pudding. If you want to use French vanilla, use French vanilla. If you want to use white chocolate, use white chocolate. If you, whatever you want to use it. That's what I'm using. If you want to use the Jell-O brand, use it. I'm using Great Value. I do have Jell-O. I do. But for this, I just grabbed great value because honestly, they all taste just about the same. And that's my last scrape. I'm just going to give it a quick whirl because we don't want to over mix it. Now, pull my mixer out. Take these out. Get my area together, my trash, and move everything out of the way because I already have my cake pans floured, greased, and I have my cake strips on it. Now I will say this, these cake strips, I absolutely love them because it makes frosting your cakes so much easier. It also makes your cakes very moist and soft around the edges. So guys, you see this? Now, I didn't use a box mixture, but I literally just made a homemade cake mixing everything in less than 10 minutes. 10 minutes. That's all. But now, if you want to use the box cake, be my guest. I'm not against it. I just like being able to say, oh, I made a homemade cake. Now, if that ain't important to you, don't worry about it. But I do. With this stage, I start with my middle. And again, if you want to take it and make sure you're getting the right measurements in each pan, you can easily do that with the scale, or you can do that with a measuring cup, meaning you'll just take it and you'll scoop, X amount of scoops in each pan until you've gotten rid of all your batter. But I just kind of eye mine, honestly. I have a scale sitting right here on my prepping table. I use it for certain things, but rarely is baking a cake one of them. So once we get this into our pans, if at this stage you want to drop your cake, drop it. If you don't, don't. If you want to use a spatula to spread them out, do that. If you don't, don't. But if you can see, I have basically all of my cake pans are even with the same amount of batter. I'm going to put these in the oven. I'm going to set my timer for 25 minutes. At 25 minutes, my cake should be done. If they're not done, we are not going to cook them for longer than 5 minutes more. We do not want to overcook our cake. That is a big problem sometimes with people overcooking their cake, and they wonder why they don't retain that moistness preheated. So we're going to go ahead and put our cakes into there. We will be back to show you the taking out, the cooling process, and we'll start frosting them. Okay, so our cakes are out of the oven, and as you can see, they are a very, very, very nice golden brown looking color. I know that light is shining directly on them, but they are so golden brown. Also, if you will notice that my cakes really don't have that dome on them, and of course, I credit that to my cake strips. But what I do want to do, I left my knife here, but I want to make sure again that I rim them, and while they're cooling, because we're not going to flip them out just yet, but I just want to take my knife, make sure I go around them, and that way as they cool, they won't be sticking to the side of my cake pan. One way you can tell when your cakes are also just about done, and just to let you know, these did bake for 30 minutes. We're going to come back, make our cream cheese frosting for the cakes, and then stick our coconut, shredded coconut to the outside, and we are going to have our coconut cake. Okay, so we are back. Our cakes have cooled, and now it is time for us to put the frosting on and also to put the coconut on. And remember, this cake is so simple. I mixed it in under 10 minutes, went into the oven. So right now, I would say between the mixing portion and the cooking and the cooling, we have a little under 2 hours into our cake. We're not going to use the stand mixer at all, but I do want to make this disclaimer before I continue. If you are using a hand mixer for this stage, now this is very important because myself, I have burnt out several hand mixers making icing. And the reason is because the once you start mixing that butter and putting that powdered sugar in, and it can get too thick if you don't have a mixer that can withstand that, you can easily burn out your motor. I'm just gonna be honest. If you are using a $10, $15 hand mixer, with this stage, you want to be really, really, really careful. I'm not saying that you cannot do it, because again, it is a simple recipe, but you just want to know the limitations of the equipment that you have. So with that being said, we are going to use only one stick of Blue Bonnet Margarine. It's not butter, it's Blue Bonnet Margarine. Now if you want to use butter to make your buttercream or your cream cheese icing, be my guest. Please, please, please feel free. We are going to use this 32-ounce bag of powdered sugar. In here, I have 1 block of 8-ounce cream cheese, and I also have 1/4 cup of sour cream. And I'm also going to use my, I always say Molina vanilla flavor, but if you'll notice, this is the clear. And the reason that I'm using clear is because sometimes if you use regular vanilla, it can give your icing a little tint. But since this is a coconut cake and coconut is white, I want the icing and everything incorporated with this cake to be as white as possible. And that's the reason why even in my cake batter, I did not add any type of food color, yellow food color, because I wanted the cake to have that white appearance once you cut into it. So let's go ahead, get started. Again, you guys, this is such a simple recipe. The first thing that we are going to do, we are going to cream our sour cream and our cream cheese together in a separate bowl, because again, remember, we are going to add that to our butter and sugar mixture. So just know your limitations on your hand mixer, and we're going to go ahead and cream this. And another thing with this recipe, I will say, I don't use room temperature products. I use them straight from the fridge. At this point, I just make sure that I cream it enough to where, I won't have those clumps. And now we are going to cream our butter. And again, I'm not going to, rinse this off or anything like that. I'm just going to go ahead, cream my butter. Or should I say my margarine. Sorry for all my butter people. Our margarine is creamed. And now we're going to start incorporating our sugar. So at this point, I will say, know the limitations of your mixer. Remember, you are not going to get a creamy mixture at this point. It is still going to look clumpy because you don't have enough in there to outweigh that dryness of the sugar. I'm going to put my vanilla in, and I like to use a full tablespoon. Mix this up. If you can see, it is starting to become clumpy, and that's what we want. We want to see those little balls in there starting to form. So I'm going to cut my mixer off for a second. I'm going to take a portion of my cream cheese sour cream mixture, and I'm going to go ahead and put it in there. So I'm going to take the remaining portion of my cream cheese and sour cream, put it in. Make sure I get all of that off as much as I can. And I'm going to mix it. And this is going to give us our final stage of our icing. And you want to make sure that you mix this until it is smooth. So you'll start on the low speed and then you'll just go up to high, but you want to keep mixing it until you don't see those little clumps. Now you'll start out seeing them because again, we are using cold products. So it'll look like it's going to be lumpy and, not mixed well, but I promise you, you will know the difference. See how simple that was? We literally have cream cheese icing. Got the cream cheese icing right there, guys. Simple as pie. Cut it off. We are done. I'm going to take my spatula. I'm going to run it around just to make sure. Even checking the bottom. Make sure I have nothing stuck to the bottom of my bowl. Everything got mixed very well. And that's our frosting. So we are back. It is time for us to start frosting our cakes. And what I like to do is I like to look at my cakes because sometimes I don't measure, and every now and then I will get some layers that may be a little bigger than the other ones, but don't sweat that. Don't worry yourself about it. So after I flip it off the wax paper, you can see I have a few spots. I don't let that stress me out. So you see how quick this is going. It's a coconut cake, so you're gonna have something on the outside of your cake. So with that, I would say I don't even worry about, which most of my cakes, I'll be honest, I don't do a crumb coat. And especially with this kind, I'm not even going to worry about a crumb coat because the coconut will cover up any imperfections that may be there. See, cake stuck, but it didn't just tear up my cake. So I am perfectly fine with that. Another reason that you really don't want to worry about doing a crumb coat is because you want your icing to, or your frosting, should I say, to be a little wet so your coconut can stick to your cake. That's really important. You want your coconut to be able to stick to your cake. So this is a wet frosting. I made it wet, and that's the reason why I use the sour cream, because it gives it that extra wetness also. All right, put on our last layer, and that layer actually turned out pretty good. And yes, I am frosting my cake using a butter knife. I don't honestly like using the offset spatula. I would prefer to use my butter knife. Just going to spread our icing toward, or our frosting, should I say, towards the edges. Now, you do want to be careful not to push too much on your cake because it will slide on you. And when I say it'll slide, I mean the cake itself on the layers will begin to slide. See how simple that was? Really, really, really simple. If you make a mistake, don't beat yourself up about it. Just keep it moving. Now you don't, this next step with my bench scraper, you don't have to do it. I like to do it because I still like the cake to be, have some level of smoothness. So what I do is I'll just take my bench scraper and you want to angle it, and it doesn't have to be perfect. Now it's time for us to start putting on our coconut. I just got these 2 7-ounce bags of sweetened dried coconut, and I got it from the Dollar Tree, and I actually love this brand. I'll be so honest with you, I love this brand. Now at this stage, if you want to go ahead and pour your coconut into a bowl, be my guest. If you want to just use it straight out the bag, be my guest. But what you want to do is you want to make sure that you have a pan that's large enough to sit your cake in, and that way you won't create a mess when you're putting the coconut onto. I like to do this if I'm using any type of nuts or if I'm putting anything on my cake, because that catches whatever falls off and I'm able to just gather it up and use it. So what I'll do is I'll pour enough in my hand and I'll just pat it on my cake. You want to make sure that you are covering your cake. Let me say this. If you don't want to use cream cheese icing, if you just want to use a basic icing, you can. You do not have to use cream cheese icing. I just like that extra flavor that cream cheese icing gives the cake. I'll be so honest with you. And also, you may not need both bags of your coconut. I just like to have it just in case. Honestly, 1 bag should be enough, but in case it's not, I always like to have more than less. So you see how I'm able to just take that coconut that's fell off and, add it to where I need it on the cake. You want to make sure that the outside of your cake is covered completely. And the top, all I do is just pour some in my hand. And I don't like those big clumps, so I try to make sure I watch out for them and break them down. And if you'll see, we didn't even need the other bag of coconut. We only needed 1 bag. So I like to put quite a bit on the top. And just even it out. Make sure, every place is covered with coconut. It's so simple, but it's so pretty. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to lift my cake up. Make sure I tap it. Remove that. And I just want to show y'all the finished product. That is our simple, easy coconut cake. And again, we didn't use a stand mixer or anything. We made our icing, put the icing on the cake, all within 10 minutes. So this cake in itself, you all, it is so easy to make in less than 2 hours using a hand mixer. And that is from start to finish. That is from making our batter, putting it in the oven, letting it cool, coming back, putting our icing on, and everything. So you can have a homemade coconut cake, you all. Homemade, nothing box about it. Homemade by your hand, mixing by your hand, no stand mixer, no anything. We made this cake and it is so moist. I promise you. I actually, if this was not for a client, I would cut a piece just to show you how moist it is. But you know, if you make it, you will see. It is so moist. It is so moist. But again, thank you for joining me for another edition of Homemade. And if you want to keep seeing our easy homemade recipes, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share our channel. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. That's what we're all about. Keep it simple, be yourself, and I promise you, life can be so much easier. So until next time, thank you.